and welcome to this edition of Startup Central. I'm Nayantara Rai, working from home in New Delhi. This is the only show of its kind dedicated, of course, to startups, but also technology, innovation, disruption. Basically, if it falls under the gambit of the new economy, it's here every weekday at 6 p.m. on ET Now. Ladies and gentlemen, like the startups we feature on the show and all the stakeholders from the community, Team Startup Central loves and thrives on constructive feedback. So don't worry about hurting our feelings. Keep writing in. Tell us what's missing in the show, how we can change the show, what you'd like to see in it. The endeavor is only to get better. Having said that, we also love compliments. You can send us those as well. Our email address right on top, suc@etnow.tv. You can also reach out to me directly on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Nayantara Rai. Well, the world will never be the same after COVID-19, or will it? Sequoia Capital described it as the black swan of 2020. Some say it's the white swan, but that's a totally different debate. But what has it meant for the startup universe? I think we've heard enough and attended enough webinars about increasing the cash runway. What is it looking like when it comes to Unlock 1.0? What is it that venture capitalists are looking like? Are you running out of cash now? Have you extended the runway as much as you could? What do you need to do now? Have you reimagined your business models? Is all that done? Now what? I thought let's discuss that and more with Sanjay Swamy of Prime Ventures, who's joining us in this edition of ET Now. Hi Sanjay, thanks so much for joining us here on Startup Central. Big fan of your Twitter handle, follow it religiously. All the advice that you give. I love your new acronym for H1B and what it stands for. I'll get to that in just a bit. But first up, I hope you, your team, your family, everyone is safe. How has COVID-19 been for you guys at Prime?
It has been a very unusual time, and we've had to deal with it quite, with some unusual measures. Clearly, the first, 30, 45 days after the no idea what has hit us sort of reaction, a lot of time was spent, I would say, by all the VCs, first looking at their portfolios, right? So unfortunately, deals that were kind of in the works sort of took a backseat because we had to work with our existing portfolio family. I think the broad consensus across the industry was maybe about 15-20% of companies were going to be really badly hit, where the business itself probably went away. Some of those companies had raised capital and had the ability to pivot, and some will probably end up being unfortunate casualties of this particular wave. But broadly, about 50% of the companies, I think the general consensus is will see anywhere from a 6 to 9 month delay in their business, but the core business value proposition itself holds. And in those, the companies that are well capitalized clearly, are in a better shape. And the others, I think generally all the VCs have figured out ways to have these companies trim their costs, or perhaps a combination of some job cuts and some bridging that has happened to get them to a better place and through this phase. About 20% of the companies, and we've been fortunate to see a few in our portfolio, have had a massive tailwind as an outcome of the change, right? And clearly there are companies like M-Fine in healthcare or Quizzes in the edtech space. And so that has created a lot of positive momentum and excitement as well. So I would say the first part was purely portfolio management and assessing where the companies fit in and made sure that they were all going through this. I would say post that, I would say certainly over the last 30, 45 days, a lot of the focus has been in this new world, which is clearly a new world. This is, this is a permanent shift in behavior, permanent shift in thought process.
Yeah, I take that
what has
point.
changed and where is the new opportunity, right? So that's been the new focus post Unlock, post the start of Unlock, and we can talk about more of that in detail.
So Sanjay, tell me something, before I get into the fact that what kind of sectors, companies, segments have seen the tailwinds, just to understand, because a lot of people who will be watching this right now, we're going to try and understand what it means from the guys who fund, right, from your perspective. Now, obviously, while you've had companies which have seen tailwinds, you would have also had companies which have either wiped out, no longer exist. And when I say you, I'm using it loosely, you want to
Yeah.
offer the community at large. Companies that don't exist, startups that are no longer there, that have had to fold up, or have seen huge markdowns. So in that environment, are VCs sitting tight on cash and being less risk averse? Are they being risk averse, not willing to take big bets right now?
So I think there is a bit of that for sure, but we are also seeing companies where there is a tailwind which are getting very strongly funded, and we have also been actively, investing in companies. I think we have to face the new world, and entrepreneurs should also, face the reality of the new world. But if you're thinking about it as a long-term play, right, there will perhaps be some markdown, or in some cases there won't be as much of a markup as one looked at. But we are not playing the valuation game here. Startups should be playing the value creation and value accretion game. And if you're looking at it as a short-term horizon, you're bound to be disappointed or likely to be disappointed. But if you're looking at it as a long-term play, and most entrepreneurs, I think, realistically are, then I think people realize that this is actually a great time to be building the company, because there are a lot of constraints and a lot of expectations that were sort of kind of artificially put into through the ecosystem or the hype around markups and things like that. Now the focus has truly and exclusively shifted to value creation. So in that sense, actually, while the short term there might be some hit, in the long run, this is actually everybody's going to come out way ahead. So broadly, I see obviously unfortunate circumstances, but really positive outcomes for the ecosystem and for the community at large.
Okay, I take that point, but what happens going forward? Now, you said that companies seeing tailwinds. Now, we've heard of the obvious ones, right? Healthcare. We don't have a single healthcare unicorn in the country. Everyone's hunting for the next one. EdTech. EdTech is perhaps here to stay. But we're also talking at a time when a lot of it is about jingoism, right? For example, today itself, the Commerce Ministry has summoned e-commerce companies to talk about Made in India tags. We don't know a lot right now. So how do you navigate through all this?
I think both in venture capital as well as in startups, the single biggest capability one needs to have is making decisions which are based on incomplete data, right? And I think a lot of the uncertainty can also work to your advantage if you assume that there will be uncertainty and you need to have the ability to change course quickly if the market moves in a particular direction. And companies that do that well will certainly be better positioned. I think there are some broad areas which are definitely going to be beneficiaries of this transformation that's going to happen, right? Whether it is short term or longer term. So certainly, if you're looking at the longer term and you're looking at the broad areas, some things are never going to change, right? Digitization is here to stay. Remote sales, remote meetings, all of this is really here to stay. Moving to the cloud and things like that for even the incumbents is now going to become imperative, right? So if you're staying and applying those basic principles and saying, look, this is definitely happening, and as long as I'm, investing behind those areas which are in the general direction, whether this is going to happen in 2 months or in 2 years, I'm not betting against the opposite of where the world is heading, then I think one will be in good shape. There are definitely going to be this is definitely rocky times. There are no guarantees, there are no uncertainties, and there will be a lot of companies which will end up being casualties of this generation. But more importantly, there will be some spectacular companies that are created or that are being created right now, or companies that have changed course during this phase and grabbed the opportunity. And those are the ones that will be the big winners. And in the startup world, that's what you're looking for. There is no safe or guarantee here. There is definitely risk, but there will be outsized returns in this generation of companies.
So tell me something. If there is a guy watching, so Sanjay, let's break it down. Let's say you've got an entrepreneur early 20s, whatever vision, dreams this entrepreneur had pre-March no longer holds valid, right? Is reworking the business model, has done that, running out of cash. What would your advice be?
I think the first thing is, are you pointing, is the problem you're solving a real problem? I think during these times, as all of us have gone to, I'm sure all of us are now spending a lot less than we used to on, frivolous things. Everything we are doing is essential based, right? So think about the target segment and the customer you are targeting and ask yourself the question over the next 6 to 24 months, is what I'm doing going to be considered an essential service by that customer or not, right? And if the answer is no, I would say rethink what you're doing. It has to be considered an essential service for it to find value in the market, right? The second thing is, everything has gotten dearer, right? Investment money has gotten dearer, and customer money has, more importantly, gotten dearer, right? So everybody is only going to be looking at it from that lens. Is this something I need now versus something I can delay spending on later, right? So entrepreneurs have to be even more disciplined about ensuring that whatever they're doing has got to be seen as a need by the customer and something where the customer will prioritize the spend above all the other things they were looking to spend. In some ways, it will give entrepreneurs much more laser focus, Nayantara. So I see it as a very good thing because they stop working on all the frivolous stuff and start working on the stuff that really adds value to their customer. And companies that do that will have, a much better chance of succeeding. Now, from a venture capitalist perspective, that's the signal we are looking for as well, right? Even in these tough times, will the customer say, I have to make the budget to pay for this product because this product is solving a real problem that I have. And if we see those signals, we are more than happy to, to dive in and invest and speak about the VC community at large, and as Prime in particular. That's what we're looking for as a signal, right? Even in these tough times, is this a must-have product?
I want to now ask you about, what's trending since yesterday. A lot of you have been writing on it, whether it's blogs, tweets, buzzing. I'm sure your WhatsApp groups are buzzing. And that's what the Donald Trump administration has done as far as the H-1B visas go. The government at least is putting up a brave face, saying, okay, there'll be reverse brain drain and a better talent pool in the country. Do you agree with that? And is that going to happen? Is this an opportunity for startups as well?
Absolutely, right? Because certainly in the short run, there will be an overall hiccup in the IT services sector space. But they will also adapt. As you saw yesterday, IBM announced that in India itself, more than half their employees are going to be working from home. TCS has made similar statements earlier, and I'm sure everybody's planning. So I think broadly the on-site requirements that used to be there in the past are just going to come down, right? So that's one aspect of it. Having said that, clearly if there's higher quality talent that's in India, they're going to look inwards. They're going to look to solve India's opportunities and problems or solve problems for the rest of the world while sitting in India. I think a lot of things have changed over the last 90 days, more from a mindset perspective, right? We are seeing even in India, even in the smaller towns, businesses are now buying products and services over video calls, right? Just like we are doing this interview today. Indian companies now can target a US customer or a European customer or an Australian customer. And there is no difference between an Indian startup and a local startup in Palo Alto in terms of an advantage because they are also selling to their customers over, over a Zoom call or a Google Hangout or what have you, right? So I think opportunities of building companies from India, especially in the tech space, which are either solving India's problems or going after global problems, are only going to go up. And so, if higher quality talent pool is remaining in India, and they have huge opportunities here domestically, several of them are going to look at it and say, why don't we do this? Because entrepreneurship is certainly the most exciting type of work one could do, and now is a great time to build a startup. As much as it's harder to raise money, it actually is easier to build a company now because people are joining your company for the right reason. They're not joining because it was a 30% pay hike. They're joining because they like the work that they're going to do in the startup. None of our startups have been complaining about employees demanding fat raises or employees, jumping ship and going from one place to another, because the industry has just gotten a lot more stable, right? So I think it's a great time, and you will see, for all the several of the people who thought they were going to go overseas and now can't, will start looking at becoming either entrepreneurs or joining startups. So it will help the local ecosystem quite quickly, actually.
I think I've discussed with you what excites you, the advantages that might come India's way, particularly with the US, with the USA's administration's view on H-1B visas. Sanjay Swamy, now let me ask you what you would not go near. It's always good to have a reverse pitch as well, right? What is it that advice to entrepreneurs on what to stay away from?
Definitely certain sectors are going to be badly hit. Travel in particular is going to be one, right? So anything that assumes a lot of business travel as a part of its sales process, for example, it requires physical contact with the customer, face-to-face meetings and things like that, and that's the only way one can sell. So as a sector, just investing in something that's doing something in travel, I think the community will wait to see how this opens up before they would invest. Remember, venture capitalists, we are gatekeepers of other people's money, and we have to invest this money responsibly, right? So it has to look like a prudent decision for us, as well as for the people whose money we are guardians of. So travel seems like a sector which is going to be in trouble for some time, unfortunately, and I think till we see that waking up, I think there will be reluctance in the space. Anything that requires travel as a part of its execution is also going to see a lot of friction. And I would say certainly certain aspects of financial services around lending in particular might see a little bit of a hiccup. This was anyway a sector that had been heavily invested into, and we also have some amazing portfolio companies like FedEx and MoneyTap and Auto Capital and so on. So we I think would watch that sector a lot more closely. Right? There are infrastructure plays in all of those sectors which might be very interesting, but the actual consumer plays themselves, I think we would watch more closely. Right. So broadly, I would say stay away from the obvious ones that are in trouble, and stay away from business processes that require a lot of customer contact and so on. Which actually all boils down to come back to digitization. Digitization of any sector in India right now is attractive.
Okay, so come back to basics, as we should call it that as well. But Sanjay Swamy, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for taking time out from your busy schedule and for being so candid right here on ET Now.
Thank you. I would just like to add to all entrepreneurs, it's never meant to be easy, but this is probably as good a time as any. Do not get scared. Make bold decisions. Now is the time to build your dreams.